Hello fellow tankers, this is Dauntless, and welcome to an episode of Scout Guide. For this episode, I'm going to be showcasing how you can effectively spot on the map Airfield. Now Airfield is an interesting map, and there aren't very many options for a light tank to play effectively in my opinion, compared to let's say if you spawned in a medium tank. Both bases have the ability to actively scout this middle mountain right here, and this is not my favorite tactic just because it's kind of RNG based. Sometimes you'll light stuff, sometimes you don't, and a lot of the time you can get yourself killed. If you do choose to actively scout this, I would advise just kind of randomly popping up and down on the southern half of this mountain in H5, H6, and J6 and J5, alternatively depending on which side you spawn on. But, this kind of gives you some options to actively scout if that's what you're into. If you notice that your team has a lack of medium tanks, you can play kind of as a medium tank and take the bush either located right here, I think you guys know what I'm talking about, as well as here if you get up there very quickly at the beginning of the map. Both those locations are good for kind of getting eyes and getting some sneaky shots into the middle, but ultimately don't take that spot if your team has good medium tank players, as they'll want to play those positions and you'll be robbing damage for them and potentially slowing your team down. So it's important when you're a light tank to know your role, know your limits, and don't take those positions before the mediums get there, because you could be ruining the chances of your team to win if you're robbing damage for them or taking those aggressive locations up front. So in my opinion, there is one good location that you can push when you are playing Airfield in a light tank. And there are two ways of getting here. You can get there from pushing up here and being really sneaky. If you're in a slower tank, kind of like this T-54 lightweight, it's safer to go around like this. If you're in a faster tank like the ELC or the RU-251, you have the ability to push through this corridor here between the building and get you there faster. Again, it's up to you and how risky you are. This is the safer way to get there. And what you want to do is kind of just hug this ridge, kind of get behind these bushes, and it's going to be this big rock right here. And this rock, it's not really passive. It is kind of active scouting, but you're really going to be pinned down for the most of the game. But it'll allow you to get aggressive spots onto anything that's going to be visible over into this area. If you have good enough view range, you can actually spot things that are up on this mountain right here. A lot of the time tank destroyers will sit here, which is right here, and they will shoot into your heavy tanks that are pushing. And so being here, you can actually pop over onto this area and get shots even and light things for here for your allies or your arty. You can also light things that might be potentially pushing here or hiding here, and it actually allows you to be kind of aggressive and get cheeky shots like this into vehicles that might be aggressively pushing your allies. And you have to be really careful for things like that. That T-30 kind of shot out of nowhere, and this does happen quite often if you are too aggressive and too cocky. Really what you want to do when you play this position is to make sure you're unlit. So after you get lit, hide behind the rock, count 15 seconds just to be safe to make sure you're unlit, and either poke up here just like this and get lights. And now if they're not looking and not paying attention, you can get shots off, but ultimately what you want to do is light these vehicles for your allies as well as lighting for your artillery. And if they're not paying attention, it's good chances of getting shots like this. Usually it doesn't work, but this is also a great position for when they choose to push really aggressively like this super Pershing is. You're ultimately a distraction, but it gives you the opportunity to get good damage in like this, where you can just continuously pop things into their side, forcing them to either retreat, doing module damage to them. I usually like to go for track shots when I see things pushing because it leaves them completely vulnerable. But you're really just a distraction. You're forcing them to look at you instead of looking at your allies, and it gives your team that little bit of an advantage. Here you can see the E-75 got tracked, and it's preventing him from pushing into that T-29 further or faster than you should. And ultimately, again, you're being a distraction. Poking out, taking shots, and putting them into the side of these vehicles. Right now, he's panicking. He's rushing his shots. He's thinking, okay, I'm getting shot at in the side. I need to back off. And again, it's helping your team win this flank by preventing vehicles from pushing too aggressively early on in the game. So when you spawn on the eastern base, your options are a little bit different than the western base, only because this side gives you two options. There's actually a bush right next to the rock, and if you decide to just be really passive and you're in a low profile vehicle like this ELC here, you can actually just sit there and passively scout just all day long without really ever getting lit. Now this position is somewhat risky if they do have aggressive light tanks that push, and you want to make sure that you get there and not be lit. If you're pushing in this location and you notice that you light another vehicle like that Lux just got lit, there's a small chance that you could get detected, and so if that happens, this position is out of the question. But if you do get here like this ELC did and you are completely unlit, you have the option to set up in this bush, and this will allow you to light anything that's up in this area here, which is awesome because it is prone to artillery fire when things are camping in this bush, and being here makes their team completely naked if you are able to just sit here with your binoculars and light anything, and it really gives your team intel on what the enemies are doing as well. Now in this instance, none of the heavy tanks took this hill, so it's kind of pointless, but for now it's giving good vision on what the enemies are doing. The alternative to this is playing just like you would if you got spawned on the western base, which is to hug this rock, peek out and get shots, and then also to peek out here as you might get shots into stuff like this. But again, this is the more aggressive approach. When you're in this position and you take a shot like that, you will get lit, and so be very wary of that. Only take a shot if it absolutely means that, you know, you're going to kill a very, very good player or something like that. If you get yourself into that position and you take a shot because you got greedy, you will get killed or lit or both. So just be really careful of that if you decide to take that location. Anyway guys, that's how I like to play my light tanks on the map Airfield. If you found this guide helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up below. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more content like this in the future. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. You've been awesome, and I'll talk to you guys later.